Tonight, September 7, 2025, a seismic event has sent shockwaves through the heart of the nation's capital. Washington is reeling from a Supreme Court decision that could fundamentally redefine the boundaries of presidential power as we know it. In a dramatic and closely watched ruling, the court has struck down former President Trump's sweeping tariffs on imported goods, upending years of controversial trade policy, and directly challenging the authority of the president to act unilaterally on economic matters. The justices declared that the president overstepped constitutional limits, acting without the approval of Congress on an issue that touches the lives of every American family and business. This case was never just about taxes or tariffs. It became a defining battle over the very limits of executive power in the United States. Trump's tariffs, once promoted as a shield for American industries and workers, faced fierce and persistent opposition from business leaders, state governments, and economists who argued they were both illegal and economically damaging. Now, in a historic and far-reaching move, the Supreme Court has sided with those challengers, sending a clear message about the separation of powers. Lawmakers across the political spectrum are scrambling to understand the full implications as the decision reverberates through Congress and beyond. For some, this is a resounding victory for the rule of law and constitutional checks and balances. For others, it's a blow to presidential strength and America's ability to act decisively on the world stage. The decision sets a powerful new precedent, making it clear that future presidents will be required to work more closely with Congress when making major economic decisions that affect the nation. The court's words will echo for years to come, reshaping not only trade policy but the very nature of presidential authority in America's democracy. To truly understand today's Supreme Court ruling, we need to rewind and examine the story behind the tariffs themselves, how they came to be, and why they sparked such intense debate across the country. Tariffs are essentially taxes placed on goods brought in from other countries. The idea is to make foreign products more expensive, so American-made alternatives become more attractive to buyers. This policy is meant to protect domestic industries and encourage people to buy local, but it also means higher prices for many everyday items. When President Trump took office, he made tariffs a cornerstone of his America First economic strategy. Billions of dollars worth of goods from China, Canada, Mexico, and the European Union were suddenly subject to new taxes, shaking up global trade relationships and sending shockwaves through international markets. Trump used these tariffs as a bargaining chip in high-stakes trade negotiations, most notably to pressure Canada and Mexico into replacing the decades-old NAFTA agreement with the new USMCA deal, which he argued would better protect American jobs and industries. But this aggressive approach came with real costs. Businesses that relied on imported materials saw their expenses climb, forcing them to raise prices or cut back. For everyday Americans, this often meant paying more at the checkout for everything from electronics to groceries. While some industries, like steel manufacturing, saw a boost from the tariffs, many others, especially in agriculture and broader manufacturing, faced new challenges. Some factories closed and fields went unplanted as markets dried up. Retaliatory tariffs from other countries hit American farmers especially hard, closing off vital export markets and leaving many with unsold crops and mounting debts. For some, it meant putting their farms up for sale. The economic fallout was deeply divisive, sparking heated debates in Congress, protests in the streets, and passionate arguments among business leaders about whether the tariffs were helping or hurting the country. For countless small businesses and families, the tariffs translated into higher costs, lost customers, and tough choices about how to make ends meet. This widespread pain and frustration fueled a wave of legal challenges. Critics argued that the administration's use of tariffs wasn't just bad for the economy, it overstepped legal boundaries and violated the Constitution. The fight quickly became about more than just trade policy. At its core, it was a battle over who has the authority to set the rules, Congress or the president, and how much power the executive branch should really have. That fundamental question is what ultimately brought the case all the way to the nation's highest court, setting the stage for a landmark decision that could reshape American trade policy for years to come. The legal battle began when small businesses, struggling to survive, joined forces with experienced lawyers to challenge the new tariffs. States hit hard by the tariffs soon joined in, as shuttered storefronts and lost jobs rippled through local economies. Their central claim was clear: only Congress has the constitutional authority to tax and regulate foreign commerce, not the president acting alone. This principle, rooted in Article 1 of the Constitution, became the heart of the dispute. The case wound its way through the federal courts, gaining national attention. A major victory for the challengers came at the federal circuit, which ruled that President Trump had overstepped his legal authority. The law used to justify the tariffs, i.e. pay, was originally designed for emergencies, not to grant sweeping economic powers to the executive branch. Recognizing the enormous stakes, the appeals court paused its ruling, understanding that the outcome could reshape the balance of power in Washington. The administration quickly appealed to the Supreme Court, setting the stage for a historic showdown. The White House argued that the tariffs were essential for protecting national security and American jobs, insisting that presidents must have the flexibility to act decisively in a fast-moving, unpredictable world. The Supreme Court agreed to hear the case, signaling its extraordinary national importance and the far-reaching consequences of its decision. The stage was set for a dramatic confrontation: executive power versus a broad coalition of businesses and states determined to defend congressional authority. The real question before the court was fundamental: who truly controls America's economic destiny? The president, with swift executive action, or Congress, with its constitutional mandate? Across the nation, people watched anxiously, aware that the outcome would shape not just trade policy, but the very structure of American government for years to come. The stakes couldn't have been higher, as the nation awaited a decision that would echo through history. Defending the tariffs, the Trump administration argued national security was at stake. They cited IEPA, a law allowing the president to act in extraordinary threats to the nation. Unfair trade practices, they claimed, threatened America's economic stability and security. The administration insisted the president needed to act quickly, without waiting for Congress. Tariffs, they argued, were essential tools of foreign policy and defense. They warned that striking down the tariffs would disrupt trade deals and force massive refunds, hurting the federal budget. Ultimately, they asked the court to grant broad executive authority to respond to economic threats. The message: in a complex world, the president needs power to protect America. The challengers, businesses, farmers, and states, told a different story. They argued the tariffs caused real economic harm, lost markets, higher costs, and disrupted supply chains. Their core point: the Constitution gives Congress, not the president, the power to tax and regulate commerce. They said Trump's use of IEPA was a distortion. The law was for true emergencies, not long-term trade policy. The challengers invoked the major questions doctrine on big issues: only Congress can act without clear, explicit authority. They warned that letting the president impose taxes alone set a dangerous precedent. Their plea: restore the constitutional balance and protect Americans from unlawful executive action. The fight was about more than tariffs. It was about defending democracy's checks and balances. The Supreme Court had to decide: who holds the power to shape America's economy? The Supreme Court sided with the challengers, delivering a decisive check on presidential authority. The majority opinion focused on the separation of powers. Only Congress can impose taxes and regulate foreign commerce. The court found the administration's reading of IEPA far too broad. Congress never meant to hand over such sweeping power. The justices invoked the major questions doctrine: big economic changes require clear congressional approval. The ruling drew a line between emergency actions and long-term economic policy. The decision told the executive branch emergency powers aren't a shortcut for major policy changes. A dissent warned this could limit future presidents' ability to respond to threats, but the majority view prevailed. The message: the president leads, but Congress holds the purse and the power to shape the economy. The balance of power was reaffirmed. The Supreme Court's ruling has immediate, real-world effects. The tariffs are now illegal. The government can't collect these import taxes anymore. For companies that rely on imports, costs may drop, potentially lowering prices for consumers. But the financial fallout is huge. Importers may demand refunds for billions already paid, straining the federal budget. Lawmakers face tough choices to cover the shortfall. For consumers, lower prices on goods could come, but it may take time and isn't guaranteed. Some businesses might keep the savings, and supply chains are complex. Industries once protected by tariffs, like steel, now face more competition. Some will celebrate, others must adapt to a new, more competitive market. The economic landscape is shifting fast. The full impact will unfold in the months ahead as businesses and markets adjust. This decision touches every American's wallet. This Supreme Court decision will echo for years, reshaping the presidency and Congress's role. The ruling draws a clear boundary. Presidents can't use emergency laws to bypass Congress on major economic issues. Future presidents will need explicit congressional approval for sweeping policies like tariffs. This means more debate, more compromise, and a stronger check on executive power. Congress may write laws more carefully, limiting broad presidential authority. For Americans, this reaffirms that big decisions should go through their elected representatives. The case's legacy is about government structure, not just trade. It's a landmark moment in the ongoing tug-of-war between presidential power and congressional oversight.